very similar in vintage and style to this that are just now becoming eligible to be classified as historic. Next slide, please. Again, we had a limited budget for an ambitious program, and we had, thank you. And we had to deal with the preconceived notions regarding windows and insulation. Next slide, please. But what was different about this process is that we had a grant from the Georgia Environmental Facilities Authority using stimulus program funds that challenged the design team and the client to figure out how we could spend an additional 1 to 3% of the building budget to improve energy efficiency. And what that allowed us to do was to do greatly detailed energy modeling of the existing condition and the proposed conditions. We also did physical surveys of the existing building using thermography to identify where the heat loss was occurring. We looked at insulation of exterior walls, replacement of windows with a variety of window types, and rehabilitation of the existing windows. What we found is that new windows and additional insulation on the perimeter of the building did not really pay off. The best buy that we could use that small amount of money for would be an improved dehumidification system or funding of a higher performance boiler to replace the existing boiler, or to do lighting upgrades above and beyond what are required by building codes. One of the other issues was individual metering that this campus does not have now, so it's hard to gauge how much the improvements are. Just one more thing about that. It's not seeking LEED certification, but the study can be applied to other buildings in the state system as well as other campus buildings that we're going to work on. The PEACH program as well. Starting this year, all Georgia state-funded projects are going to have to comply with the PEACH program, which emphasizes energy efficiency other than the big broad spectrum of sustainable design that LEED emphasizes. I think you get 1 to 4 peaches, depending how much you improved your energy efficiency. And this study was tied to that. The next building is the Swan School of Modern Languages at Georgia Tech. We completed this project in 2005. Has an approximate budget of $3.5 million. I don't know the square footage number on this project. If you're interested, I can email that to you later. It's a 1901 former dormitory building, one of the original 12 buildings that make up the historic district at Georgia Tech. Next slide, please. Master plan called for the building to house the Modern Languages program. It was a great fit. They had already been using the building. There was a desire to restore the original configuration of public spaces to the greatest extent possible. And key was seeking significant improvements in operational efficiencies of the building. The issues that we dealt with were less than sensitive renovations that had occurred in the past, poor quality and inappropriate window replacements that had occurred, and outdated and inefficient systems. What we did to the building was to remove the inappropriate windows, install new windows that were more historic in character, removal of inappropriate finishes and modifications to the interior. Vertical routing of new ductwork from the attic spaces allowed restoration of historic hallway ceiling heights, transoms, etc. And we improved energy efficiency up to 30% according to Georgia Tech's information. It was completed prior to Tech's mandate for LEED certification, but in 2010, a green scorecard prepared by Georgia Tech, which required analysis of the building, indicated that the building would have likely qualified for LEED certification had it been applied for. Next slide. These are some slides of both the modern classrooms and the historic corridors that we restored. Next slide. Sisters Chapel at Spelman College was, the part we worked on was completed in 2005. It had an approximate $5.5 million budget. It's the gym of the campus. It was dedicated in 1927. It's one of the core historic landmarks on the Spelman campus, and it has been used for a variety of musical, religious, educational, and other functions throughout its history. Next slide, please. This is its dramatic view from the quadrangle. Next slide, please. The issues we had to deal with is that the original building had no public bathrooms, no air conditioning, and there had been intermediate attempts at upgrades to the acoustical performance of the space that damaged the architectural integrity and basically didn't work. The campus desired acoustical upgrades. They wanted to air condition the building, improve accessibility, and put updated systems for broadcast in the building. Also to evaluate the extension of the balcony to accommodate audiovisual controls and expanded seat capacity. One of the problems we dealt with was limited access for system installation. So what we had to do is build a vault, actually separate from the building that was below grade, that we put the air conditioning equipment in and the electrical equipment in. That created acoustical separation from the performance space, and it also freed up, we didn't have to build new space in the building or adjacent to the historic building. We routed ductwork below the slab in the main space and above the ceiling. We installed new acoustical treatments that look like plaster on the ceiling. And we removed the existing windows. They were rehabilitated remotely and reinstalled in the same location. The balcony was restructured and expanded, and accessible restroom facilities were added. Next slide, please. This is the space, and you can see the new audio-visual screen that disappears into the ceiling. Next slide, please. And as a result of this work, we also created a new reception chapel space in the basement and a new outdoor terrace adjacent to that space. LEED certification was not pursued, but I think this is a great example of how you integrate very high-performance systems into a historic building without affecting the architectural integrity. Next slide, please. A few conclusions that I think I can draw from my experience with these projects. All of these highlight that adaptive use and restoration of historic buildings can coexist with sustainable goals. Sustainable solutions do not have to scream, "Look at me." In other words, these buildings really aren't about gadgets or things, but they still achieve sustainable goals for the campuses. Sustainable decisions should be made at the master planning level. As I said, if you have historic buildings, you need to evaluate what functions you're going to be putting in those buildings. And there are a few things that also come to mind, I guess negative, that we encounter when we're dealing with these projects. There's a stigma that older buildings are inefficient and require expensive upgrades to be energy efficient, which is not always the case. There's also preconceived notions about windows and insulation of exterior walls. And we've run into that on every project we've worked on, and often energy modeling shows that's not the best way to spend a limited budget. And I also would like to add that the LEED scoring systems, while they're very effective, they don't always really take into account the embodied energy or the investment that you already have in an existing structure. So sometimes you have to work a little bit more creatively to make sure you get the points you need for LEED certification in a historic building. Thank you.
We're going to go into some questions and answers about this. I don't know if any of you have any questions about what you may have seen. I've taken a couple of mental notes as I saw some of the eyes and head nodding about some of the things that you guys were listening to. And one of the questions that I want to pose to Tom, I didn't pose this earlier, but I saw a head move or two when we were talking about the costs per square foot of these projects. Mm-hmm. And I think there were two projects that you noted that were $200 a square feet. Mm-hmm. Which one was that?
That was the old CE building.
The old CE building. And which is this building here?
That building there.
And then the other one that you mentioned was $170 a square foot. When you're on a campus with limited funding, mm-hmm. as most of the HBCU schools are, and the HACUA, as well as Native American Indian Fund schools, how do you best decide, or when do you think it's best for an owner or college or university to decide to either build new with $170 a square foot or $200 a square foot, or to renovate a historic building?